I mean, we're an hour into the show, and I have not talked about the Giants really in
Wait,
any
that's
meaningful way.
wow. Yeah, we should. Yeah, let's talk about the Giants.
Let's play that video of Brian Daboll, who came out after the Giants' 23 to 17 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, smoking a big fat cigar, being like just I mean, I don't even know how to describe his aesthetic, but he's almost like a tough guy mafioso type, except that he has the smarts and the offensive and game management understanding of like one of the young Shanahanites or those McVay types, and just like a lot less talent. This was Brian Daboll coming out of the Jaguar Stadium to speak to fans after the game, and I was very amused by everything about this clip. Look at that, smoking the stogie. I mean, I, coach of the year. I think that, there's still a long ways to go, and it's hard to argue against Nick Sirianni as well, because the Philadelphia Eagles are undefeated and they're probably not going to lose many games this year, so maybe he wins it. But the Giants are 6-1 for the first time since 2008. It's been 100 years since a first-time head coach has had this kind of record for the New York Giants. And yesterday we saw two 100-yard rushers in a game for the first time in years. One of them, Saquon Barkley, the other Daniel Jones, who continues to improve every single week, and now we're getting in the conversation about him getting franchise tag next year, which I would say is more likely than not that he will play another year for the Giants. And the thing about what Daniel Jones is doing is it's inarguable. The Giants have no receivers. Kadarius Toney not playing. Their $75 million receiver in Kenny Golladay not playing, hasn't caught a touchdown since he's been with the team for around a year and a half at this point. Sterling Shepard out with an ACL tear. He's thrown to Richie James and Marcus Johnson,
My
and
guy
then
David Sills.
and David Sills, who dares
Sills
to
the
wear
fifth.
Odell Beckham Jr.'s number. God forbid. I mean, hey, by the way, repping Victor Cruz
Yeah,
today.
New Jersey's own, baby.
Hey, that was such a magical season with Victor Cruz, but I digress. That they won the Super Bowl that year, and I saw him catch a touchdown. I was at the Colts Stadium, and Lucas Oil, and I was in the like nosebleeds, but looking at that end zone. So that was
Wow.
I remember.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you
he,
were at that one.
He bobbled the touchdown and he caught it, and they won the Super Bowl. But I digress. So it just look. The Giants are 6-1. It's incredibly exciting. They survived a situation at the end of that game that they shouldn't have been in, but Saquon Barkley kind of slid awkwardly and he tried to stay in bounds, but his foot went out of bounds. I still think it was a bit of an iffy call either way. And then Jacksonville's driving down the field, a minute left, no timeouts. There were a litany of ridiculous penalties called on the Giants, defensive penalties, including a roughing the passer call against Leonard Williams, which made no sense, but they ended up stopping Christian Kirk at the 1 yard line. And I just can't say enough. Like, Daniel Jones was throwing to the one security blanket that he had in this game, in terms of like a receiving target, was Daniel Bellinger, the rookie tight end, who's been a standout. And Bellinger got poked in the eye so badly that he fractured his eye socket and is now going to need surgery. So he was out for the game. And Ben Bredesen, a starting guard for the offensive line, went out. Then Evan Neal, the starting right tackle, went out. And Daniel Jones still hung in there and made serious throws and was getting fired up, getting mad at his receivers, which you never see from the robot who looks like he should be working at Goldman Sachs, out of Duke, right? He seems like
Oh
a
my
total
God, yeah.
Wall Street bro, but he's got the athleticism and the respect of his teammates because he just quietly goes about his business. And when he gets mad, it's like, oh, he's actually taking command of the team now, and he's not constantly worried about making a mistake, which is one of the brilliant changes that you've seen from Brian Daboll.
He made serious throws, but also he was doing a lot of great work going through his reads. And as you were saying, given the level of talent that they were working with on a healthy Giants roster, there was still a level of depletion of talent on this roster. The Giants were down to some of their second or third string tackles and guards and second or third string receivers. So Daniel Jones, when he wasn't making very quick decisions to get throws out, took off with his feet and was getting chunk yardage from rushing. So he was not only making quick decisions, he was making quick decisions both using his feet and using his hands to throw. I mean, it was really impressive to see him process those things quickly enough to make those plays when he needed to make those plays with a very, very banged up roster. And I just want to give a huge shout out to some of the guys on this defense. I mean, Fabian Moreau
off the street, basically. Not really, but
I mean, a guy who was not in high demand, making really, really big plays. Julian Love, for another week, looking like a really, really strong asset there at in the secondary. And also, I feel like some great moments from Darnay Holmes. I thought he played really well as well. I mean, a lot of these guys are playing just higher. They are punching above their station. And
Landon Collins came back, was also signed.
And he was pivotal to that. He was pivotal for stuffing Kirk at the 1 yard line.
Played a lot
as well.
of snaps. Yeah, good to see him back. I mean, one of the rare good moves of Dave Gettleman's tenure was not extending him, even though maybe you should have gotten an asset for him. But regardless, he was mad at the Giants, he thought that we should have given him a contract extension. He ended up going to Washington, and there was some bad blood, but it seemed like that all washed away, and he's back with the Giants, and I'm happy to see him back. He was another Alabama safety that the Giants took in the second round, like McKinney, who is just the leader of that defense. And Kayvon Thibodeau, I don't think he's ever going to be Trevon Walker or Aiden Hutchinson for that matter. I think those guys, in terms of the pass rushers taken, are a level above. But he's a good player, and he's a heads-up smart player, and he was getting held all over the place on that field. And so those were just a variety of different, just solid, smart players on the defense who can make a difference. And I've yet to look at some of the more in-depth film studies that they put on YouTube about the game, but my guess is that they were kind of playing Landon Collins in the box a bit more because the Giants have a real deficit at linebacker, but you wouldn't know because they're so creative in the way that they put their personnel in certain positions to make a difference for the team. So,
and like we were saying, I mean, cross sport, but like we were saying, it's a similar thing as we've been saying this whole season, but now that we're seeing sort of a little bit with the NBA, like with the Jazz, for example, is this is what you have to do, and what works when you don't have the talent to match up against certain teams on the roster is you scheme them up and you maximize their strengths. And that's exactly what Daboll has been doing week in and week out, is just taking the personnel he has, not being like, oh, I need to just do what I did when I had Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. He says, oh, I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think a few people on the broadcast said this as well, that this isn't Alabama's offense. This isn't the Patriots' offense.
They couldn't run the ball in Buffalo, and now they run the ball everywhere for the Giants, and that's because he understands his personnel, and the Giants O-line is much better at run blocking. I mean,
it's such a strength of his, honestly.
I know that people are going to be like, and I get this in my mentions too, where people are like, they're lucky. We're 6-1 team ever. They are not going to go far. Their wins have been by slim margins, comebacks in the fourth quarter, which is, by the way, the hallmark of a well-coached team. But I'm under no illusions. I don't think the Giants are going to the Super Bowl. Do you guys actually think that I feel that way? Or do anybody watching this who's trying to crap talk me? I don't actually feel that way. I just am encouraged about the culture that's being set for them. They're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but they are much more likely to make the playoffs right now than not, and that's incredibly exciting given the state of the roster.
Absolutely, 100%. Also, there are teams with a lot better personnel right now who are not 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, right. There are a few off the top of my head.
Los Angeles Rams.
The Rams, the 49ers, even though I still believe in Kyle Shanahan.
No, definitely, but injuries and everything else. But that's the crazy thing, is that the Giants also have injuries on a team that has a lower grade roster than a lot of these teams, and are still gutting out difficult victories. Yes, they're not blowing teams out, but they're playing hard to win. They could have lost this game, and I wouldn't have necessarily batted an eyelash because it was close. And like sometimes if you don't,
and the Jaguars have talent, but
Right.
that's the difference. The Jaguars, the team they just played. How many of those guys would you take over Giants players? Would you take Trevon Walker over Kayvon Thibodeau? Yes. Would you take Josh
Christian
Allen
Kirk.
over Azeez Ojulari, who wasn't playing, or like Quincy Roche or whoever's rushing the passer? Yes. Would you take
Christian Kirk,
the whole receiving core?
Yeah.
Would you take over them? Maybe not tight end because Evan Ingram. I mean,
right. But even they've been using him smartly. It's just I agree in terms of
most people would take Trevor Lawrence over Daniel Jones.
I think that's the biggest one.
I mean, I think that I also think that there is some like decent. They've got the Campbell kid out of Georgia in their secondary. Right?
Oh, Tyson Campbell. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of decent pieces, and the Giants are winning more because in the NFL, coaching matters. I think more than any other sport.